Oh, yeah.
Hey guys.
Hola.
Talking about guns today. Not these guns though.
Yeah, he's taking his guns out. That's what I'm saying.
It would take too long to discuss this one.
Yeah, let's discuss it. How'd you end up with those?
I'm just not flexing right now. I don't want to distract from the actual gun conversation. Yeah, we're going there.
Yeah.
You think we're crazy, don't you?
And we already saw your comments.
Crazy.
Already talking.
We have people calling the show. We weren't even talking about it
Yeah.
because they heard we were going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a really simple thing to bring forward because it's the national conversation. A lot of Christian radio shows and everybody pretending like it's not happening
Yeah.
because it's so controversial.
And Governor DeWine's actually talking about it and proposed some measures.
Yeah, Governor DeWine has proposed certain actions to prevent gun violence, and many of them would be construed as gun control in some sort. Many of them, I looked at all 17. 1 through 5 are mental health. Number 6 is background checks. 7 through 13 have to do with penalties for violating the law.
For people who already have a record, right?
14 and 17 are about school violence and safety. 15 is about social media monitoring. 16 is about like security in neighborhoods. So really, only one is actual gun control.
Which one?
The background checks.
Background checks, yeah.
Oh.
The rest of them are measures that are caused to ultimately like prevent violence without changing gun law
Okay.
or more penalize
Yeah.
people for violating gun law.
Okay.
But I think the real relevant conversation in the midst of this is, in the wake of mass shooting in Dayton and El Paso, representing ends of the political spectrum, should Christians support? Now, again, be clear. I'm not saying getting rid of guns. No one's taking your gun. No one is asking you to give up your gun. No one's suggesting that people erase the Second Amendment. It's still there. The National Archives guards, I've seen them. They're going to make sure no one erases it today. They're not going to take white out to the Constitution.
Nicolas Cage can't get it.
Right. That's right.
And let it be clear, we're completely in favor of the Second Amendment and the Constitution here. That's not even anything to do with that. The question is, in the wake of mass shootings, one of which included a 100-round clip here in Dayton, should Christians support gun control measures of any sort in the wake of those shootings? Okay.
You got
Go.
lots of comments. Marcus says, I only have one question. Are the perpetrators of these violent crimes licensed, law-abiding, concealed carrying citizens, or just a violent person using a firearm as a means to an end? If the latter is the case, then restricting law-abiding citizens will strip them of their ability to protect themselves or others. How would that do any good? Every time this happens, I hear about stricter gun laws being proposed instead of stricter punishments.
Okay.
Governor DeWine's talking about stricter punishment.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is.
And Marcus, I'm with you on that. Sometimes, it's a criminal who has gotten the gun in a criminal manner. There's far more of those than the mass shootings that we highlight in the news. The criminal, felonious, one-on-one assault, robbery kind of stuff. But in this regard, even if, like the Dayton shooter, I believe he did own the rifle legally and all the ammunition legally. His mother was concerned about it. She called the sheriff or some law enforcement official and said, hey, I don't think this is good. My son doesn't seem to be in a good state of mind, and he's got all this weaponry, and as far as I know, no reason to have all this, so won't you do something? And they said, he's of age, it's legal, nothing we can do, and wash their hands of it. And then days later, they're washing their hands from the blood of the people they had to help out of Dayton. So I think there's room for minor tweaks.
And that's all anyone's talking about, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how it is that we go from someone saying, boy, we ought to consider our laws and perhaps change them. How does it go from that to, they're taking our guns, they're taking our guns, they're taking... No one's taking your gun.
We've made tweaks along the way, like schools are gun-free zones, and certain government buildings, they're gun-free zones, and you go through detectors for any metal detection, and they pat you down if you need to. So there have been things along the way that are minor, and I think at least what I'm proposing and endorsing are the minor things, just little things.
And whether or not Christians are support that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcus
'Cause
says,
I'm-
thank you for your explanation. Very good points.
And so I can give a real practical example that Governor DeWine didn't even address,
Okay.
that I think Christians logically could support, okay? So the shooter in Dayton had obtained and I'm not a gun enthusiast, I don't know all the terminology correctly, but he legally obtained a .223 caliber high capacity rifle with a 100 round drum magazine. 100 round drum magazine. One magazine
Can I see
with
it?
100 rounds in it. Couldn't, without being worried someone's going to take your gun, couldn't a Christian say, it's going to make people feel better, it promotes peace and lack of violence, to say, maybe we shouldn't allow people to legally purchase a 100 round drum in Ohio?
If you're a hunter,
Yeah.
the sport of hunting is that you get out there, you track your animal, you take aim. Not that you just happen to see one walking by and you just and you got 5 trees that you knock down and hopefully you hit the deer. That's crazy. There's no sport in that.
There's no reason that a law-abiding, or any citizen, needs a 100 round
Yeah.
clip.
And I can understand even a gun range saying, like, we have this, like, you can shoot it at our range, but you can't you can't purchase it. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
so-
Like,
I
hadn't
that's
even thought of that.
That's even different,
Yeah.
you know?
But see, that's where the conversation comes in, is couldn't, and dare I say, shouldn't Christians be on the side of peace when it comes to tweaks in gun control? Again, no one's proposing your guns be taken from you.
And I like that
Right.
suggestion because it's more preventative. The whole thing of increasing punishment is like, okay, so are we going to wait for things to happen and then just make sure they get punished well versus what you just said?
And
I mean,
that
what was
adds-
it? 30 seconds, 9 deaths? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That adds to another problem of the jails being overcrowded. And now you're
Right.
just saying, okay, we want to
Fireman held him at gunpoint and saved lives. Also, gun laws are different in different states.
Yeah.
Connecticut needs, Connecticut needs you to register magazines greater than 10 rounds. Arkansas
Reasonable.
guns are illegal. Is that Arkansas?
AR is
Or AR guns
Yeah.
are illegal.
AR guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike says maybe larger clips with registration for security purposes.
And see, I'm trying to think biblically about this, where I'm saying, if we look at the scripture, what does Jesus call of us? Love our enemy, peacemakers are blessed, turn the other cheek. I'm not saying be subject to violence, but the preponderance of scripture is to love your neighbor and to be peacemakers. And I don't see how the message of when someone proposes reasonable gun control measures, that we spaz out and say, stop taking our guns, how is that being a peacemaker?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there's been reasonable things proposed, and why wouldn't we be the people that advocate for this? And I've heard people give the argument, though, just to play devil's advocate, people would say, oh, well, it's people that, law-abiding citizens, you can't take their guns because they're not violating the law anyway. It's just the other people.
Yeah, that's the
It's
the
true.
main argument I hear.
And I get that.
So how is it helping the issue, the real issue?
Okay, so
That's like saying
Here's how
mental
the argument
health.
would
The
work.
mental health ones, I was like, really?
here's how the argument would work. Let's just say Brian proposes in the Ohio State Legislature that we remove the legality of buying a 100-round clip in the wake of Dayton. Okay? Somebody could say, well, Brian, that's not going to prevent mass shootings. And I'd say, you're absolutely right. That will not prevent mass shootings. But it could reduce the killings in another one. This guy got off 41 or 42 shots in 30 seconds. Maybe if we made some restrictions on the weaponry you could have, it wouldn't prevent mass shootings, but it could save lives. Or what about this? It would give citizenry peace of mind.
Yeah.
And some people feel like they're fearful because people can purchase this. Why isn't that a reasonable thing that Christians could support? You
Right.
see what I mean? I don't think anyone claims that there's a magical law that will stop gun violence. I just don't understand why Christians feel comfortable being outspoken, loud, advocates of promoting more guns, more guns, more guns, more guns, big clips, big guns.
Yeah.
I just don't see how that fits with Scripture.
Christy says, good morning. Good morning, Christy and Kathy and Ira, Diana, Mike. She says, there isn't an easy answer to this. And I know that's it doesn't provide a solution, but it made me think. Do you think what's getting us stuck on the discussion is the parties? And like you said, even if you're talking to a person, forget the parties. The person's so focused on don't take my guns that we don't, as humans and Americans, just sit together and say, oh my gosh, we got to stop this. What do you think about this? Oh yeah, let's do this. We're kind of stuck with fear and making our point.
Yeah.
Even on the law level, like the congressmen.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that's what has us stuck in the discussion?
We always let the extremes dictate our fears, right? So Ron and I were talking before this started that there are people who advocate for taking your gun. There's people who, if they had their way, would take over the government and they would eliminate Second Amendment and they'd collect everyone's gun and we'd all be left with no guns.
Right.
That's a fringy idea that would require such a dramatic change to the United States Constitution that is in the realm of the impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take a legitimate constitutional amendment where the majority of Americans would have to consent to this.
Right.
And then you're still knowing that most people, the ones who aren't following the law, they're not going to bring their guns.
That's right.
How are you just going to, bring them all together? Jeffrey says, how is this a Christian issue? We agree on the need for peace. Isn't the rest a discussion of practical solution? That's a valid question, which is kind of what you're saying. But my issue is, why is this even an issue among Christians? What is...
Why should we talk about it at all?
No. Why do we need to talk about it? We are all Christians and we all agree. We need more peace. This is bad. I think that's where Jeffrey's going.
If that's where he's going, I don't know quite what to say, but...
The rest of the discussion is practical solution. What's keeping us
Right.
from that? There's something that the people, Christians that believe in peace, that have their guns,
Well, here's what it
something
is.
that's keeping them from that.
Do you know what it
Practical
is?
solutions.
I think it's there's some people who love their guns more than Jesus. Who they've placed such a high value on their gun in the Second Amendment that they place that above everything else in their lives, and it's idolatry. You can be in favor of the Second Amendment without making it an idol.
Right.
And you can be a person who works for peace without having to think that anytime anyone mentions the word gun control, they're taking white out to the Constitution. That's extremist, crazy thinking.
Right.
I think we have a lot, too, of perception difference. The more rural you are, the more you see a gun as a tool.
Yeah.
You're shooting groundhogs that are eating up your crops or things like that. Maybe you're hunting for actual food you're going to eat to put on the table. Urban, the more urban you are, guns are, you see the 4 kids 16 to 20 years old having a gun battle and shooting a 9-year-old sitting in a car in between them. And you think, guns are evil, look at, and it's not the gun that's doing this, it's the people. Whether it's a 16-year-old kid and how he gets the gun, that's another issue. Or, a 50-year-old who's threatening his wife because they're having an argument of some sort. But there's a perception difference that has to be considered as well.
And
You're right, there does. Yes.
A friend of mine, my closest friend, love her, Marcella, she lives in the middle of nowhere in rural county, rural somewhere. And she helped me understand a view that I never thought of. And it's like you said, when you love someone, you kind of can see their point better than when it's just politics or headlines. And she was like a safety issue. She said when her husband leaves to work, far away, she was like, by the time if anything happens, the police or authorities or anybody gets there, she's like, it would be too late. She was explaining to me why a lot of the people in her area, it's not urban at all, how they see guns different to us in terms of safety. There's also hunting and everything else. I see a name we have not seen before. Did you see that?
Sola.
Yeah.
Hey, Sola.
She says, good morning, guys. For this discussion, it's a tough time now in America. We're called to love, irrespective of the race, ethnic background. Even our enemies. In America today, one cannot buy alcohol until one is 21.
Right.
But yet can buy a gun at 18. No common sense in that. What is these assault rifles needed for in our society? None. A regular gun like the one police regularly carry on them should be enough. Someone called in about intercession. Surely everything starts with prayer. And then she's talking about the Lord is our shepherd. And you were going to say something. You rubbed your hand.
Well, yes, Kathy brought up what I hoped would come up here. Thank you for this, Kathy. She said, maybe the reason is fear of a slippery slope. We didn't fight for prayer in school. Lots of Christian values have been eroded. And I love that came up because I think we forget what a slippery slope really is. We use it as like a secret tool to prove to people why we should or shouldn't do something. Because if you do A, it's going to lead to this. But when you look at philosophy, that's called a logical fallacy. It's one of the ways that you make an argument that is flawed. Slippery slopes are usually completely irrelevant.
There are times where they are.
There are times when they are
I can think
relevant.
of slippery slopes with my kids. Like when you give a teen just a little bit, I'm just picturing there are times where it makes sense, the slippery slope.
There are times when it makes sense, but each small step has to logically lead from one to the next. And oftentimes we jump to extremes. I told the team this crazy story. A friend of mine grew up on the East Coast, and they were in a traditional church with like just organ.
Yeah.
And the kids started advocating for drums during the service. And the pastor literally said, first we'll have drums, next thing you know, we'll have naked ladies on projector screens. I mean, that's a ridiculous slippery slope. That's like, no way one leads to the other. That's crazy, okay? So with that in mind, what I think is interesting is a lot of us don't realize we're already on the gun control slippery slope.
Okay.
People are like, oh, if we make this new regulation, it's a slippery slope, it'll lead to this one. We're already on it. Here's what I mean. The most dramatic one that people get mad at me for. I cannot go buy a rocket launcher. I know that sounds outrageous, but is that not some form of weapons control in America?
Right. Yeah.
Could I go, if I wanted to, get a 50 caliber machine gun and mount it on the top of my 12 passenger van? No, it's not allowed.
No, this is not war, Brian.
So I'm not allowed to own a 50 caliber machine gun and put it on top of my van.
Yeah.
So we do have already regulations for guns in America that don't violate the Second Amendment.
Right.
So I think all that most normal, rational, human, well-adjusted human beings are saying is, can we move the line a little bit? And moving the line has not in the past led to someone taking your gun, knocking on your door, excuse me, sir, heard you have a gun, give it to me now, I'm America. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
No, it's like, can we just move the line a little bit? Can we take the 50 caliber gun on top of Brian's van and include the 100-round drum the guy used in Dayton
Yeah.
as something you're not allowed to have?
Lots of new names. Dick, hello Dick, and Connie, and Marcus, and Anita, and Tracy. Dick says, the only problem is a magazine can be changed out in a second. It really wouldn't change the scenario at all. Starting restrictions opens the door for more restrictions. Criminals will continue to have guns and law-abiding citizens will have no defense. There are so many stolen guns out there. No way to know where they are. Gun control will only punish law-abiding citizens.
There's a lot in there, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. Can you go back to it?
Quantaya, we haven't seen you in a while. And Myrna, you thought you slipped in. We saw you were a little late. It's okay.
I talked to a friend about that very same thing, Dick, yesterday, who said, Brian, I could duct tape together 3 clips of smaller size and change them in a second.
Yeah.
I get that. I don't think that getting rid of the 100-round drum will eliminate any particular thing other than saying this is going to be a moral decision America makes in response to a horrific shooting and saying, listen, average citizens don't need 50 caliber machine guns, they don't need rocket launchers, they don't need tanks, and they don't need 100-round clips.
Yeah.
It's not going to make a much more tangible difference than ultimately having us draw a line that makes us all feel better. And what's wrong with that? It's not going to change your ability, clearly, to be the guy that can change clips in a couple seconds.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's more of a psychological change than it is a practical one.
And in the Dayton situation, it was a 21-year-old, I believe, probably isn't going to be able to move the clip as quickly as a trained military veteran or somebody like that. So, and even someone trained, the fact that his focus is off of target hunting and, onto the clip provides a moment for a citizen with a concealed carry weapon to take him out, or a citizen who just uses his body to take him out. You could charge him and take him down while his focus is on, changing his clip. So
Yeah.
it can provide more safety. The possibility is there.
Myrna says, I'm all for the right to own guns, but there's no need for assault weapons. They allow too many casualties in a short amount of time. I want better background checks,
Yeah.
longer waiting periods, and gun shows better regulated. That reminds me of, you got to jump through more hoops. You got to jump through more hoops for other things than to get a gun. Like, for example, Planned Parenthood. There was a comparison. I don't know if you saw it. It's a meme about, it's easier to get an abortion as a young person than it is to get a gun as a young person. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah.
no?
And
I know what you're saying.
And someone compared it to, I'm sorry, go ahead first.
A friend of mine, I was conversing with him on Facebook about this, and he pointed out every gun show that he's gone to
Yeah.
and bought a weapon at, he's had to get go through a gun or a background check. So
Right.
people have this illusion that you just walk in and you pay money and you walk out with the gun. It's not always the case. It is sometimes, but not always. And Solon's representative to the Ohio House, Phil Robinson, just introduced a bill to remove any of the loopholes for background checks. So you're getting a gun in Ohio, you are going through a background check.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And that way it takes out any of those. I think background checks are fine. There's no reason that I can see not to have
Is that a new one then? Because if we've been doing background checks, you said he added that in his 17 proposed actions.
Well, he didn't
The
add
background
it. It was
check.
one point had to do, that number 6 from Governor
tightening
DeWine's
the
17.
loopholes, I think.
Yeah, it was a really short one. It was, DeWine asked the Ohio General Assembly to pass a law that, quote, requires background checks for all firearm sales in the state of Ohio, with the exception for gifts between family members and certain other limited uses.
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you think of Connie's comment? She says, how about enforcing gun laws on the books? Can someone please show me how the anti-gun laws in Chicago has worked?
That's a
True.
great point.
Yeah.
I've heard that same argument made. But we have to step back and take a look at the purpose of the law.
Okay.
Like, people don't want gun control restrictions, laws against certain things with guns. Can we apply the same logic to other things, like, for example, speeding?
Right.
Well, I'm responsible. I am a law-abiding citizen, and I don't speed, so why do we even need speed limits?
Right.
That's just
Right.
trying to punish law-abiding citizens. No, it's not, actually. Laws are designed for the few people who don't follow the law. They aren't there to do, and they're also there to protect the citizenry.
Right.
And so, when we talk about these logical ideas with laws, you have to be able to transfer them to other laws, and I don't think we can.
Right.
Right.
I don't think it applies, therefore, in that way.
I wonder what this does as far as state to state. So, and I don't know gun laws or gun purchases very well, so forgive me, but what's the policy between buying a gun in one state and bringing it back to another, just based on
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a good point, because there are a lot of states that are much more lax and
Yeah.
other states that are much more tight.
Yeah.
Look at Donna's comment. Just curious, do you think that even if we take away the assault rifles, the person that wants to get them will find a way to get their hands on one? Yes, they will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But again,
They could. You're making it harder.
you're making it harder. Sure, it might be harder to get it, but that's not we don't have laws because it will eliminate a behavior. That's not why we have laws. You can't buy alcohol till you're 21. So what, do you go to someone and go, oh, well, are you trying to say the kids, if they want one, they're not going to get alcohol? I didn't say
That's a
that.
good point.
I said
Yeah.
as a society, we've gotten together and agreed, you cannot purchase alcohol till you're 21. None of us have illusions that kids still can't get it, won't get it, can't easily get it.
Yeah.
We're agreeing on a standard as a society.
Oh, that's good.
Apply to any law. why don't those laws also apply with guns in that logic?
Rod is disappointed. He said, Ron, Minnesota. Somebody's asking you where your Browns T-shirt is. Go Browns,
sorry, brother.
Yeah, you usually do that.
I had to decide, and right now it's heading towards playoffs for the Tribe. We're just starting the Browns. I got a lot of time to wear that official Jim Brown jersey.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks to my wife.
I don't know the difference, but Mike says I think people relate the term assault weapons with automatic weapons. Automatic weapons are illegal.
Yeah, and this is one of those interesting things that always happens in the wake of an act of violence with guns. Okay, people who really know guns well, God bless them. My father-in-law is one of them. He's a firearms expert. We don't know, they know the terminology,
Yeah.
and we don't. So what happens is, it breaks down on terminology. If I were to call this, in Dayton, the guy used this .223 caliber high capacity 100 round drum magazine. If I were to call it, he had a drum clip. There'd be memes all over the internet about Brian's an idiot, don't you realize it's not a drum clip, it's a drum magazine. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Now, really, do we need to break this down on terminology?
Right.
I think what people are trying to say is, dude, average citizens need access to weapons like the one used. Michael Rydelnik told me people would be shocked to find out in Israel, average citizens do not have access to automatic weapons like that.
Yeah.
You got to be in the military to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody has served in the military.
Yeah.
Right. And so
So
their
they
people
know
are
how
more
to
trained
use
than
it.
our people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeffrey
That's very true.
clarified, and he said he has heard many discussions like this in person and on secular radio and podcasts. His point is, fixing the issue is not a Christian issue. Should we is the Christian issue, which highlights your original question. Should we support it? Like, isn't...
Gun control measures.
Right, gun control.
Because here's my thing. It's when it's all over, Christians have to ask, what are we going to sound like and look like as a group? And does it look and sound like Jesus? And if we're advocates for more guns and continued access to dangerous weaponry, do we sound like Jesus? I mean, really, if we're going to put on our biblical lens first, you're not going to like me saying this, but we got to take the Second Amendment and put it over here,
Yeah.
because it's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
And do we want to be people who are known for our advocacy for weapons?
Yeah.
Does that sound like Jesus? And I have yet to hear a compelling argument for someone to say, yes, Christians should advocate that that Americans have lots of guns and use them to protect themselves and kill people because the Bible says...
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
Well,
the Bible
they'll
said-
tell you a self-defense.
Okay. And Jesus says, greater love has no man than this, than he who shoots and kills with a concealed carry permit, the intruder. He who lays his life down for his friends. Biblical principle consistently is self-sacrifice, not killing.
Yeah. Beth, I haven't seen your name in a while. She says,
Beth.
this is such a good point. Why didn't law enforcement respond more to his mother? She followed the idea of see something, say something. That is big in Stark County in light of the many suicides and school shootings we've had in our area over the past couple of years. Why not respond to the call of something is off with my son or my brother and they have access to mass weaponry?
And that's what Governor DeWine's trying to
That's
address.
a big
that's
deal.
at least one of his points, too.
Yeah, Governor DeWine, in his proposal, has 17 points, whether or not you support them. And we have no official stance on it, let that be clear. He tries to address that, where it becomes easier for people to do just that. Like his second point is increase access to inpatient psychiatric care. It's really hard for example, if my brother needed psychiatric care, it's really hard to get him in there without his consent.
Oh, yeah.
And so it looks like Governor DeWine is trying to help that
The
issue.
mental health one, though, I just
Right.
can't stop thinking about Dr. Gerstovich. We just had him on Monday, and he said it's not even, it's so minimal, the amount of people with mental health that commit mass shootings. So when I saw, the first 5 on that, I'm like, really?
Yeah, he said it was 4% of all crimes was someone with a mental disability.
We
Right.
tend to think
At
that
all.
no normal person would do this. I would never go shoot up a store, so it must be a mental health issue. But it's not.
Right. No.
I mean, any more than I would never cheat on my wife, but people do it every day. They're
Yeah.
not mentally ill.
Yeah.
They're just sinful.
Well said, Ron.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the guy in El Paso drove for 10 hours. That's not indicative of a psychotic break
Right.
to take a 10-hour drive to go kill people. That's premeditated, calculated,
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing action.
And know what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hi Liz. Guns aren't the problem. Four people were killed this week in Orange County. And the man, 33-year-old man, was holding a knife, not a gun. The media has not covered it much because it doesn't fit the gun control agenda. We have a sin problem. You talked about a slippery slope. Hitler took the same actions, slowly making changes to regulations,
Okay.
such as gun control, leading to the demise of an entire nation.
Couple of things. When media choose to cover and not cover a topic, there's always some level of bias involved, but I'm not a subscriber to the vast conspiracy idea. If I were in a newsroom making a decision as a follower of Jesus, I got 22 people shot in a Walmart, and I got how many shot in Dayton? I forget how many.
9. Well, no, 9 died.
9 died.
22 died.
A whole bunch of people shot in Dayton.
Yeah.
In 30 seconds.
And I've got only so
What?
much time in my show to talk about a topic. I know that there were certain number of killings in Chicago. I know some guy stabbed people in Orange County. To me, it's only a logical conclusion that you lean towards El Paso.
And, yeah.
It's not someone going, I hate guns. I don't want to talk about knives now because that doesn't go against that doesn't fit for my
Right.
narrative. That's a logical news decision.
But then
But there are
even
knives, machetes, scissors, clubs, bats, cars, people running over people
Yes.
in cars. They're using all kinds of weaponry to kill people. One of the things I found interesting was scientist. Oh shoot, I can't think of his name right now. Real
Oh,
big
yeah.
space guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But he posted in the average 48 hours, there were like 500 people died of medical errors, and that struck me like, really, that seems like something that we ought to be concerned about. If our medical system is so flawed that 500 people die in a typical 48-hour period.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
We talked about that when you were out because I've seen that flying around a lot too, and one has to wonder about that. Some people say, "Oh, it's because the media is a vast conspiracy to try to bring down guns, and they don't care about those issues." And I think that I don't want to devalue the loss of life in any way because God values all life,
Yeah.
but when you take a geographic area that extends all the way up to Alaska and down to the South Pacific and Hawaii, and at various points throughout a 24-hour period, in random places you have 500 people die. I think the intensity of that is seismically different than a guy walking into a Walmart and intentionally mowing down 22 Hispanics.
And when you want viewers, you got to be salacious in what you choose, and that's something that strikes people. Most people have never had somebody they know die of a medical malpractice, so you don't think it's going to happen to you. But you go to Walmart, and so you think, wow, this could happen to me. I go to Walmart every week. I'm going to get shot, maybe.
And so it's not that the medical ones don't matter, far from it. It's that the obvious point of societal attention would go towards the isolated, contained incident, not the one that extends over 50 states.
But the weapon matters. I mean, it's a little more scary to just shoot 9 people or kill 9 people in 30 seconds with one weapon
So you're
versus
saying-
a knife.
So you're saying you can kill more people with a 100-round drum, I'm going to say it wrong, someone's going to yell at me,
Magazine.
magazine versus what you can do with a knife.
Like running around with a guy running around with a knife in Walmart is just a little less concerning than a guy who walks in with, I don't even know, they're not assault,
Yeah.
whatever he had.
Yeah.
Because it's long range. I mean,
You
Unless
can't
it
run
was-
from that. Like if I'm holding Raina, I can run, but he's gonna get me. I don't care how far I'm. You know, like it's just.
yeah.
I don't know if I want to believe it's an agenda. I want to make sure. Okay, am I letting the media scare me? That's scary. Like
Yeah.
that's concerning.
Well, and with a single shot, the chance of him being like accurate with hitting one person long distance is a lot less
Right.
than someone shooting 100 rounds.
Rod
It
says
is.
humans will never cure social ills. Cain had no role models to follow when he decided to murder Abel.
Well, but see, when I look at this, when we go back to that issue of, guns don't kill people, people do. What are you going to ban cars? Because they
Right.
kill people.
Yeah.
I understand where somebody's coming from, and we all know that's true, and yet we still choose to create regulation. Like, because the logical conclusion to that ideology is that we should remove all gun restrictions. Because guns don't kill people, people kill people. You'll never stop that, so why have gun laws at all? Why can't Brian have a rocket launcher? Why? He's a law-abiding citizen. You see how, like, we do all agree at some level there needs to be some regulation.
Yeah.
You can't walk around waving a knife around without having someone call the police
Right.
and being charged with threatening an assault. And so I don't think the solution is to say, oh, well, people kill people with cars, so what, should we ban cars? No one's saying that.
Right.
That is an extreme idea that just detracts from real conversation, in my opinion.
Right. Carla has said, "Go Brian," and she said, "Yes, Janelle," later, and then now she's saying, "Too easy to kill too many quickly with a gun," and Mike says punishments have to deter more people, so change the punishments. You think the key is? He keeps saying it's change the punishments
That's part
because
of-
changing the gun laws isn't gonna.
That's part of Governor DeWine's proposals.
The biggest part.
And for some of these people, it might, but there's a lot of the mass shooters intend to go down, whether they kill themselves or it's
Yeah.
suicide by cop, where they're going to go out and start shooting at the police and knowing that they're going to get filled with lead. So they're not looking at spending the rest of their life in jail. They plan to die on that day.
Yeah, and some of it borders on the ridiculous, where you have to go, does the criminal who wants to kill someone look at Governor DeWine's ideas and go, if you commit a felony with a firearm, now they're going to add 1 more year in prison. Like, does that change their behavior?
That wouldn't be the mass shooter. That'd be more the stick 'em up guy.
Well, but he has all these
Yeah.
regulations where he's proposing more, like, additional punishment.
Yeah.
And would the person that wants to commit the crime even, number one, know that those punishments are changed? And number two, would they go, well, at 2 years, I didn't care, but at 3, now I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Probably
do
not.
they even really know? I just.
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I think the listener that text or that commented and said there's no easy solution kind of
but-
captures the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think we got to remember again, we're ambassadors for Christ.
Yeah.
And whatever message you send about the gun control issue, you're doing so in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
And we all ought to examine our hearts to make sure that when we speak about this issue, we sound like Jesus.
Yeah.
And we are holding up Scripture as the basis for our opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. It is time for the weekend. It was super fun. Thank you, Wendy, Anita, and JJ. Solai. I loved your comments. And Mike always. Rella, that's a new name I haven't seen. And Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hey,
Bye. Bye, guys.
adios.